Can you hear me? Yeah. What are we doing wrong? Well, let's see.
Meeting of Monday, August 15th, 2022. Please rise, start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Janice, would you please take roll?
Mrs. Walker. Present. Mr. Hurst.
Present.
Mr. Franz.
Present.
Mrs. Grabanowski.
Present.
Mr. Lake.
Present.
Ms. Maverick. Present. Mr. Jones.
Present.
All right, Mr. Jones is remote, so we do have all 7 members present. Do we need to have a nomination for the secretary? Okay, so we need to have a nomination for secretary, permanent secretary, I believe. Go ahead.
I nominate Janice for permanent secretary.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. 7 unanimous, Janice, you're the secretary. Thank you very much. In your packet was a set of minutes from the July meeting. Was there 2 meetings or just one? Just one in July. Is there any comments, additions, deletions to those minutes?
I move we adopt them.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Most minutes are approved. On the docket, there was a withdrawal 2022 DP Altum's Garden Center, which was a petition for development plan approval of Garden Center to be relocated on a portion of a 7-acre site in rural I-2 industrial zoning within the MRO Michigan Road Overlay zoning district. So that was a petition requested for withdrawal. So we'll go on to other continued business. Docket number 2022-29 DPA Harris FLP B Shops at Appaloosa Crossing, 3091 South US 421 Zionsville. Petition for a development plan amendment to provide an outdoor seating area to be located on the southern end of the B Shops building area previously approved as a drive-through window and aisle. The involved property is zoned rural GB general business and is within the rural Michigan Road Overlay. Petitioner present.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Matt Price. I'm with the Denton's Law Firm in Indianapolis with address of 10 West Market Street here tonight on behalf of Harris FLP. The case summary just read identifies kind of the essence of our petition. It's a development plan amendment, and this is the retail shops building that you see under construction today. It's immediately south of the recently approved Chase Bank. This pertains to the very southern end of the project. Because I know you need more paper, I gave you a print off of our plan, which is like such. North is to my right or to your right. So the left-hand side of the drawing is the area that's being impacted by the amendment. And essentially what we did is filled in what was formerly designed to be a drive-through lane with an outdoor seating patio area. So it was area contemplated to be impervious for the drive-through. The drive-through will not be built, obviously, is being eliminated and replaced with the outdoor dining area. The aesthetic component that may be of interest that we wanted to depict is in the elevation provided. It's contemplated, if you've ever been to Verde in Carmel, Indiana, it's very similar concept where they have some indoor space and then kind of an open air concept where you can walk directly into the patio area. And the same concept would apply here. And so they've installed two overhead doors, one underneath this vestibule kind of towards the very far right-hand side of the property, or a facade. And then the other one is this one that's partially obstructed by the post for the canopy that you see there as well. All glass overhead doors with metal bracketing that matches the rest of the building materials for the building as you go all the way around the other facades. One other thing it's noted in the staff report, which has been a matter of some discussion over the last year, but we're going to pursue it with precision in the coming weeks and months, is that Roger Kilmer and Janice and I have a meeting this Thursday, a pre-filing meeting on a master signage plan, which will include signage for this facility as well as the campus itself. So that's kind of a preview of filings to come in the future, but signage is not part of our development plan amendment this evening. Be happy to answer any questions that you have and appreciate your approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this point, is everybody in the audience or online who'd like to make comment on this matter? Quickly, did you notice via first-class mail or registered?
We noticed via registered mail.
Okay, so this does this go back to the original or to this one? I mean, did they have to renotice for this one? They had to renotice.
Yes.
For this. Okay, all right, fine, thanks. At this point in time, there's nobody to speak. Roger, or who's giving the staff report? Roger? Okay.
Yes, thank you. As Mr. Price stated, this petition is really rather straightforward. When the proposed Verde restaurant applied for their improvement location permit, our inspectors picked up that they were now adding this outdoor seating area and the overhead garage doors, and the inspectors noted that would require development plan approval. That is what brought us here tonight. We've had a chance to review through it. Staff's initial concern was just to make sure that the outdoor seating area was going to be properly secured from traffic in the area. That has been identified and as shown on the plans. So as presented, staff is in support of the development plan approval. Be glad to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. At this point, is there anybody on the plan commission who has any questions, comments? If there are none, is there a motion on this matter?
I move that docket number 2022-29-DPA, a petition for approval of a development plan amendment to provide an outdoor seating area to be located on the southern end of the B Shops building in the revised southern building facade in the rural general business GB district and within the rural Michigan Road overlay be approved based on the findings in the staff report and the staff recommendations, submitted findings, and subject to resolution of outstanding review items identified by the engineering review letter and ZFD comment letter in Exhibit 5 of the staff report.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Janice, would you please take roll?
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Ms. Madrick,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Hurst,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
All right, motion is approved 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Next on the docket is, we'll take them both at once. 2022-34 PP and 2022-35 DP, Hunky Development Promontory Primary Plat 1 and Development Plans Section 1, 9825 Windy Hills Drive, Zionsville. Petition for approval of primary plat for Promontory Section 1 consisting of 52 single-family residential lots on a 245.4 plus minus acres in planned unit development Promontory PUD district. One subdivision waiver requested. And petition for development plan approval of Promontory Section 1 consisting of 52 single-family lots on a 245.4 plus minus acres being in the planned unit development Promontory PUD District 1 waiver are requested. Is the petitioner present?
Yes, Phil Sumling's here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
Good evening, members of the Plan Commission. My name is Phil Sumling and I'm with the Hankey Development Group. As always, I really appreciate your time and certainly your consideration this evening. I want to first start by relaying a huge thank you to town staff for their diligence throughout the process over the past month. Hitting our timeline for this project is absolutely critical. And these guys have done an incredible job at working with us to get us to the point we're at tonight. And I really, really do appreciate their efforts. So Janice, Roger, George, DJ, Michael, Ron, the whole team, really thank you all for working with us closely on this one. With that in front of you tonight is Promontory Section 1, which is generally located east of US 421, west of County Road 1000 East and south of County Road 200 North. Just to recap briefly here, this section includes 52 lots on 245 acres. These lots range from just over 2 acres all the way up over 4 acres. And as you know, this project was introduced at the July Plan Commission hearing, where we left that meeting with some homework. And I'm pleased to highlight tonight that we've made great strides over the past 4 weeks. And I'd like to provide you all with just a few of those updates. First, regarding septic systems, the soil testing is wrapping up, and these have been submitted to the Boone County Health Department for their review. Every single one of these have come back with favorable results, meeting the county's requirements for a septic system. Clayton Campbell with the Boone County Health Department has reviewed these and is in concurrence with the results. With that, the next step in Boone County is to have the system fully engineered, which occurs when the home design is completed. In Boone County, the way septic systems are designed and sized is based on the number of bedrooms in a home, plus any jetted tub with greater than 96 gallons of capacity. It's kind of a random requirement, but this is known as the bedroom equivalent. And septic systems are sized with this number along with the soil testing results kind of combined. And based on data that we've compiled from Holiday Farm specifically, we anticipate this average number to be around 5. And this would generally equate to either 150 by 120 foot in-ground system, which most of ours qualify based on the soil testing results. Alternatively, if they do what is called an ATL system or an advanced treatment leach field, that would result generally in a septic sized at 75 by 60 feet. There are hybrid versions available for certain scenarios with sand lining and other physical improvements, all of which will be worked out during the engineering phase. This is one of the reasons we've set homes so far back at Promontory. This is done in part to allow plenty of room for these larger septic systems. And note that we also push the wells to the rear of the home rather than the front where we had them designed originally, just so that the minimum 50-foot separation would never come into play. Secondly, I know there were some questions regarding the drainage design and the report in whole. These comments from staff and from all of you were addressed over the past month and included in the latest version, which is a 380-page drainage report. Also, if you recall from July's meeting, Mr. Bidgood, our neighbor there to the south, spoke publicly about some concerns he had regarding drainage. We met with him on site. We walked the property with him. First of all, he's a great guy. He's got a beautiful piece of property to our south, and he'll definitely be a great neighbor. I can confirm that we've fully addressed his drainage concerns, and we'll continue to maintain open dialogue throughout the construction of the development to ensure no new issues do arise. Next, Mr. Bidgood and Mr. Franz mentioned questions on traffic, and we offered to perform a speed study along US 421. After the meeting, we immediately hired A&F Engineering to perform this study, and the results came back. Unfortunately, that did not support a speed reduction. Matt Brown, the VP of Traffic Studies at A&F Engineering, mentioned that as developments go in, and once the new entry is added along 421, typically this would result in naturally slower speeds as the area kind of develops. He mentioned that speed is often governed by driver anticipation, and if cars are turning more frequently, vehicles tend to pace a little bit slower than purely open roadways. I know there's not much we can do at this point to help with slowing down traffic, but I can commit and happy to commit to coordinating with our contacts at the Indiana State Police Department to request additional patrolling efforts if it is helpful. Next, we've continued our efforts with Ron Lips and Josh Frost through the design of our fire protection system, and we've now received their approval, which is noted in Exhibit 6 in the staff report. Many thanks to Ron, Josh, and their team for working closely with us again to get a system in place that keeps the safety really at the highest of priorities at Promontory. And as far as construction timing goes, our goal remains to break ground immediately. With us hosting Homerama in the spring of 24, our timeline for delivery of lots is going to be a bit abbreviated, but we've been in constant communication with a major heavy civil contractor, one that has the ability to scale up and meet our timelines. And if we are fortunate enough to get approval tonight, we would immediately work with staff to finalize our construction documents in an effort to get equipment mobilized on site as quickly as possible. So at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions or address any comments. Thank you all.
All right, thank you. At this point, is there anybody in the public, in person or online, who'd like to comment on this matter? Since there are none, Roger, you have it?
Thank you. Before I get into the staff report, I wanted to make the Plan Commission aware when you came in this evening, you should have found at your seating location a letter from the Boone County Surveyor dated August 12th, 2022 that had 9 items noted on it. This letter came to us late on Friday after the staff reports were distributed out to you. So I'm making you aware, and I've already made the petitioner aware of this, that this letter, if you would look at the cover of the primary plat staff report under Exhibit 6, there are comment letters from, and it notes the town engineer, Boone County Highway, Boone County Surveyor's Office, and the town fire marshal. This would be a second letter from the Boone County Surveyor's Office, so that would be, I'm noting that so that it is into the record, so that should you follow the recommended motion only notes comment letters from Exhibit 6. It does not specify. So I'm wanting to incorporate this letter as an additional letter to that list. Okay. With that being said, as Mr. Sunling mentioned, that these 2 petitions, the primary plat and the development plan, were presented to you last month for consideration. After discussion, it was determined that a continuance was needed to allow the petitioner time to further address items of concern. Specifically, there were 3 items that staff met with the petitioner on. We had a final meeting with them on August 10th, and we discussed at length the drainage concerns for the project, the status of identifying possible septic field locations for each lot, and the status of the fire suppression system, which is to be utilized, and its timing. The petitioner, that was a very productive meeting. It included not only planning staff, but engineering staff and also the fire department. We went through each item in detail. One item to be clarified for you is that last month, the petition was for 53 lots. In the time since last month, one of the lots, I believe it is lot B2, there are some aspects of it regarding emergency flood routing that have not been resolved yet. And so the petitioner has decided to remove that individual lot from the lot count, but identify it as a block. So what you're now considering are 52 lots, not 53, 52 lots in one block. They will, when the when the flood routing on lot B2 is resolved, they will bring that back in for your approval. So again, again, touching on the meeting from August 8th regarding the drainage concerns, the town's engineering staff has stated that it appears the majority of DPW's substantive comments have been sufficiently addressed. And while there are still some issues outstanding, they should be able to be resolved without any major revisions to the overall project concept. They look forward to working and continuing to work with the project team, and the remaining items are resolved and final approvals are given by the town and the other agencies and jurisdictions. So engineering has looked at drainage and essentially said, we're comfortable with where it is, we're prepared to move forward. The second item regarding septic field locations, as Mr. Sunling noted, most of the lots have been able to submit to the Boone County Health Department locations for potential septic fields on majority of the lots. There are still some that have not yet been submitted to the county. That is why in the recommended motion, staff is recommending that it be should you choose to approve the project tonight, that it be a conditional approval subject to those remaining septic fields being submitted to the Boone County Health Department and receiving approval from them. The third item of discussion at the August 10th meeting was the fire suppression system. The developers put together a rather extensive fire protection design memo, which is included as Exhibit 8 in your staff report. Our fire marshal has had a chance to review that and has deemed it satisfactory, and they are ready to move forward with this project also. With those items being addressed, and speaking on behalf of the rest of the town staff who reviewed their different aspects of the project, staff is in support of approval of both the primary plat and the development plan this evening, subject to the items I noted at the end of the staff report. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. At this point, is there any questions, comments from any of the members of the Plan Commission?
Sure, I've got a stack. Anybody else before I go?
No, go ahead, Larry.
Regarding the septic fields. So I've been back through the drawings and it's good that Mr. Is it Sunderland? Am I saying that correctly?
Sunling, yes.
Sunderland identified that typically there'd be about 5 units that would count towards the design size of the septic field. He kicked out a number of 150 feet by 120 feet. I guess I'll just cut to the quick. None of these lots have identified an area 150 feet by 120 feet that a septic field could fit into. How's this going to be addressed? What we're seeing on the information we've been provided is a block that, according to my best efforts, is about 3,200 square feet. The area that Mr. Sunling just described is 18,000 square feet. And that needs to be 18,000 square feet of undisturbed soil on each site to satisfy the needs of a 5-unit septic field. Who's going to be responsible for confirming that there is substantial area that a septic field can be put on these lots if we approve this project?
Larry, Mr. Jones, would you like me to address that now?
Sure.
So the way the soil testing's done combined with the engineering, from what I understand, there's a number of different options, one of which being an in-ground system, which basically uses the natural ground. It's essentially a pipe and stone option at grade. And that option is where in conversations with the soil engineers, that size is about 150 by 120 for the 5 equivalent bedroom. Most of the systems designed today are a little bit more high tech, I guess is the best way to put it. They're called ATL systems, advanced treatment leach field, I believe it is. And those oftentimes require footprints that are about half of that size. So what you see in your drawings or in the drawings in front of you are worst case scenario, which if we ran into bad soils, you don't have the option to do the in-ground system. So basically, in our case, what we would anticipate on all of these lots is to install sort of a hybrid system, which is the ATL system, which would require the much smaller footprint. Should the results on each particular lot come back with good soils and engineered with an in-ground system, we have allotted 150-foot setbacks on most of these lots, and they're all a minimum of 160 feet wide. So the full in-ground system, if designed and if desired, would still fit there. But it gives them the option, and which likely most of them will choose, is the reduced size of the ATL system.
But the
Does that
ATL system still require a perimeter drain tile, correct?
That is correct. And no matter what, we will provide the perimeter drain tile connection.
And so what about those lots where the location you've shown is compromised? I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You've got certain lots where when you start really taking into consideration the grading that's got to be done for them are going to render those areas useless that you've got the field shown in. You've got a couple of them where you don't really meet the minimums for separation from the property line. You've got some of them where, and then my question is, what's going to go on out there? Is you're going to come in, put your roads, drainage swales in, there's going to be a certain amount of grading, which is going to render a portion of the lots unusable for a septic field. Or you
Correct,
think
yep.
the ATLs can be put anywhere?
The ATLs no, there is an option to put a certain type of system in disturbed soils, but we've allotted outside of the construction area for what we're doing in terms of our front yard swales, which will encroach the furthest into a lot as anything. Everything beyond that can still fit a full-size 5-bedroom equivalent. Generally, I shouldn't say all, because there are some constrained lots like A6, A7 that would require the ATL because of the reduced footprint.
The problem is, wait a minute, when you start saying about the typical system, the 150 by 120, you can't have a driveway across it.
Understood. And in those cases, that's where they would be required to put the ATL system in, which has the reduced footprint.
And is the ATL system a mound system?
It's considered a hybrid. It's not necessarily a mound system where it sticks out of the ground 5 or 6 feet. It sticks out of the ground anywhere from 18 inches to 36 inches. And typically those systems are, like they call it, feathered in.
Have you explained to the people purchasing these lots that they're going to have basically a 75 by 60 foot mound, 2 to 3 feet in their front yards that they can't landscape on, can't plant trees on, and needs to be maintained?
Yes, every resident that's come in for a lot visit, it's explained to them the process for both septics and wells. It's something we've made very clear to every buyer that's come through.
Whose responsibility is to comply with this?
I'm sorry, ask that again.
Whose responsibility is it to comply with this?
I would say it's probably a shared responsibility. It's ours on the front end. Once the lot sells, there's obviously still requirements. In our purchase agreement, there will be provisions in there that they are required, obviously, to get everything's on a well and septic, so they're required to follow through on the permits. We've met with all of the builders on 2 separate occasions to kind of highlight the requirements for septics, just to make sure they're all up to speed on what is required in Boone County. Boone County is kind of unique. Obviously, the soil testing is pretty typical. I think pretty much every community requires the soil testing, but in Boone County, they require an actual engineered system, which I think is a great thing, especially when you're talking about homes of this quality. When you incorporate the engineering function, that's going to be kind of a shared effort between the builder and us. It's no different than when we review a plot plan here at Holiday Farms. You know, the builder works
Holiday
with the
Farms
homeowner.
has a public sewer system.
The process specifically, where the builder works with the homeowner, they design a home, they fit it onto a plot plan, and then we get reintroduced to the process to review that and make sure it's all in accordance with zoning and with the town's requirements. It'll be very similar at Promontory, where the builder works with the homeowner, they design a house, they design a system with the soil engineer, they send it to us, we make sure everything's in compliance before it gets submitted to the Boone County Health Department. Ultimately, Boone County Health Department will have the approval of the permit for the septic.
What's going to happen to lots that don't comply and can't?
I would
comply?
say there'd probably be a buyback provision. We're not going to leave anybody hanging if that's your question. That's not,
And
if
then
there's a
long-term-
concern.
Long-term, if these systems begin to fail. My understanding that lake up there is basically dredged. So the tilled farmland that's been up there for a while is not really what you would consider undisturbed soil. Then when you start looking at some of the provisions you've got to make to stay away from the regulated drains, the 100-year flood marks, keeping things off the property line, not letting wells overlap. I appreciate, all the good effort and promise put forth, but you're getting ready to propose 52 septic fields in an area. And from what I'm seeing just from my review, and I'm no expert, I counted up at least a dozen that currently have issues. And while you've been able to find a parcel that appears to be all of 40 by 80 that might be acceptable as a septic field location, that's no guarantee. So what's the long-term solution if these things start to fail?
I think with the efforts we've put forth on the front end with the soil testing, I don't want to offend you, but there is a guarantee in that regard. I mean, these are design systems with qualified individuals performing testing. We're basically mitigating every bit of risk that we can possibly mitigate on the front end with these
But if
efforts.
you fail, it's the individual homeowners, it's their responsibility.
Describe, what do you mean by fail?
I mean, they begin to leach into the lake. One of the issues I even went through and found is that your covenants require all lots to be irrigated. Technically, you really do not want to irrigate a septic field. I talked to Clayton Campbell as well today to get this information, and even he had to chuckle. Yeah, they don't really recommend you irrigate a septic field that kind of runs against what it's supposed to do. There's no way for them to prevent it.
Yeah, in terms of the irrigation, I think that's focused more on the planting beds along foundation of the house. It's not
No,
necessarily the yards.
It's not. I read it. It's not. And my general concern is these don't work. And that's the reason you haven't really been able, and you haven't really addressed them in a manner with realistic fields and locations for what you're selling.
And I appreciate your opinion, Mr. Jones, I truly do, but I feel as an engineer who has spent countless hours learning and understanding and meeting with professionals who do this for a living, who are completely qualified, far more than me even, for them to do the testing, to perform the testing, to certify the testing. These guys have done it for, the guy we're using, Tom Ziegler, he's done it for over 50 years. He is essentially backing.
That there's sufficient field size out there for your 120 by 150 foot number, your 18,000 square foot per lot?
Certainly on some of these, there will be plenty of room for the full in-ground system. For those that do not fit those, if they're constrained lots that do not fit that system, they'd simply go to the ATL system or some sort of hybrid, just depending on the size of the home. Some of these homes might not be a bedroom equivalent 5, they may be a 4, thus requiring a far smaller system. But no, and on your concern of the dredging, most of that material was placed along the embankment from what we've understood. And then the soil tests that have come back, there have been areas, particularly near kind of I think it's the A2 area. There was a small area that when Tom was doing his soil testing, he did find some areas where material was distributed. It was only 3 or 4 inches, fortunately. So that's part of his testing. When he goes out there and does the physical testing of the soil, he is analyzing in situ material, what is there, what's always been there, what's been added on top, what's been disturbed. That's all part of his effort. So again, I don't mean to offend you. I appreciate your concerns and I appreciate your stance on this, but having dealt with these guys who do this for a living, who qualify their work, I totally trust in what they do. I mean, we're not hiring guys to do this work that are off the street. These are guys that have done it for a long time. They're professionals. And
if I want to request a continuance and then you come back with confirmation of what lots will effectively be able to handle the 120 by 150 foot field and what lots will require the, what do you call it, ATL? Is that the initial? Can you provide that?
no, that's all going to be based on the size of the home and the home's design. So there's going to be.
It's based on the fact you're selling 2-acre lots.
The size of the lot does not factor into the size of the septic. It's the size of the bedroom equivalent of the home.
Okay, so let's just use 5 as an average then. Can you still provide that information?
I'm sorry, Larry, ask that again.
Can you provide the information to confirm what lots are suitable for a 120 foot by 150 foot typical or standard septic field that'll serve 5 units, and what will require what you call the ATL, the hybrid units?
I suppose I guess I'm not following what you're asking for. Every lot that we have
designed is, as I look at these lots and the amount of available land and the proposed grading that will be needed for the roads,
sure,
existing regulated drains, the other work, the 100-year floodplain, I find that there's multiple lots that just won't be suitable for a septic field. And then when you start talking, and it started with looking at what you showed, which was roughly I may be incorrect, but it looked like it was about a 40 by 80 foot area, 3,200 square feet. The minimum I came up with when I was talking to Clayton would be somewhere around 8,400 square feet. And the 150 by 120 number is an 18,000 square foot septic field. And I just don't find 18,000 feet of land available that will be undisturbed, won't have roads crossing or driveways crossing it. I don't like the idea that we're being requested to approve something that's not it's not completely thought out.
And I appreciate that. I truly appreciate your comments. I truly do. We have no intention on selling a lot that cannot be, somebody's dream home cannot be built on. And if that is your ultimate concern to mitigate that, I can absolutely commit on this call that if there is a situation.
My ultimate concern is I'm being shown something that isn't feasible. Part of the PUD, part of our approval of the PUD was that each lot was, suitable for a septic field for the proposed size of home that was going to go on. You got continued last month because you hadn't got the study done or hadn't provided the information. And now as I'm digging into what information you're providing, my concern is you don't have enough space on each lot for a suitable septic field to be put in. The suitability of what is being proposed, you're not meeting your standard.
And again, I appreciate that, but every professional that we've hired.
Okay, well then go back to the professionals and provide what I'm asking.
So I have a question, Mr. Sunling, if I
Yes,
can
yes.
interrupt Larry.
Sure.
So you have the ability, you are allowed to do an ATL system on any lot that you choose. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you've shown a footprint suitable for an ATL system of 5 units, 5-bedroom units, correct?
That is correct.
No,
So Larry, I don't get why he doesn't meet the standard.
no.
He doesn't have to provide a traditional system. He can provide an ATL on every single lot, and the ATL fits on the lots. Am I incorrect in that?
No, what he just proposed was that the ATLs could be put into an area by 75 by 60. Does that include the perimeter drain tile form?
That does not include the perimeter. I don't believe that includes the perimeter drain, but going back to Mr. Lake's comment, that is exactly what we provided is a bedroom equivalent 5, basically an ATL system. Now, again, there are lots that should the homeowner choose to do the fully in-ground system, they are fully capable of doing that on particular lots. And obviously that's something that'll get worked out through the septic engineering process. That's the next phase, once the house is designed.
So once again, my concern is what we are being shown, the little squares on all those lots, they're about 3,200 square feet each. From the best of my abilities to go through the provided information and come up with an idea. The ATL
Larry,
size lots. you
Let me,
set
I mean, the
ATL
key
units.
thing, the key here is this is still gonna have to be approved by Boone County when these things get placed. Yeah, we've got the plant, the planning department here, the town staff saying that, you know, they can work this thing out. When the engineering's looked at it, approved it, the septic that have been shown to the county, been approved. You know, you may not like it, I guess, but I mean, they've got a lot of people saying that this is something that can be done.
My concern is we have a lot of people saying that there are suitable areas on each lot that a septic field could be placed. They're not taken into consideration. Are the septic fields that they're going to be needed? Is there the available land for same? Same question, looking at it two different ways. Can you go out on each lot and find an area that would be suitable for some form of a septic field? Sure, but that's not the same. My concern is, at some point, if these systems don't work, there's going to be requests for sewer main out there, which is going to change entire development all up and down, you know, 421 and in the 32 area. That's what the only fix is going to be. And do we want to open ourselves up to that?
I don't think we're opening ourselves up to
They
anything.
created the
I mean,
PUD, they set the standard. My concern is they are not meeting the standards they set. Their standards say they would find a suitable area for the proposed homes they're trying to build. They'll readily admit it will have 5 units. That could require systems of a certain size, and it's not what we are being shown. I am never a fan of being shown one thing and then letting people do the other. What we are being shown doesn't meet the standards that they're saying. And if we're okay with that,
okay, I believe that's well noted at this point. So is there any other questions, comments? Did you have anything beyond that, Larry?
no.
Is there anything else from any of the other members? If there's not, would someone like to make a motion on this matter?
So I move the waiver request for the length of the cul-de-sac street to be known as Hollingsworth Lane to exceed 800 feet be approved based on the findings included in the staff report Exhibit 5 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Janice, would you please take roll?
Ms. Madrick,
Agreed.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mr. Hurst,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Waivers approved 7-0.
I move that docket number 2022-34-PP, a petition for primary plat approval for Promontory Section 1 consisting of 52 single-family residential lots in one block on 245.4 plus or minus acres in the planned unit development Promontory PUD district with one subdivision waiver be conditionally approved based on the findings of fact, the staff report, and as presented and subject to the approval of all lots within the primary plat to have acceptable septic field locations identified and resolution of the items within the comment letters in Exhibit 6.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I believe the motion would need to include this letter that is not part of Exhibit 6.
Okay.
So amended.
So that becomes part of that motion.
Yes,
Did you accept the
I
second?
certainly do.
Any further discussion? Janice, please take roll.
Mrs. Robinowski,
Aye.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mr. Hurst,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
No.
Mrs. Maverick,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
That motion carries 6-1. That primary plat's approved. Is there another motion?
Yep. I move that docket number 2022-35-DP, a development plan petition for the approval of 52 single-family residential lots in one block on a 245.4 plus or minus acre planned unit development Promontory PUD with one subdivision waiver be approved based on the findings of fact, the staff report, and as presented, subject to resolution of the items within the comment letters Exhibit 6 and approval of docket 2022-34-PP to also include the most recent addition to Exhibit 6 presented to Commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Janice, please take roll.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mr. Hurst,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
No.
Mrs. Madrick,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mrs. Robinowski,
Aye.
That motion also carries 6-1. Mr. Sunling, thank you for your time. Good luck on this development.
Yep, thank you all. Appreciate it.
On to new business. Docket number 2022-30 PP, primary plat, highway primary plat, 6125 South 700 East Zionsville, petition for subdivision of 26.36 plus minus acres into 6 lots being in the rural GB general business district. 2022-31 DP, Hy-Vee food stores, 6125 South 700 East Zionsville, petition for development plan approval of a 152,000 square foot food store on a 17.93 plus minus acre site being in the rural general business GB district, and 2022-41 DP staff or Hy-Vee convenience store and fueling station, same address. Petition for development plan approval of a 4,150 square foot convenience store with a fuel sales on a 1.36 plus minus acre site being in the rural general business GB district. Petitioner present, please state your name, address, and proceed.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Brian Sheward. I'm a civil engineer at Kimley Horn and Associates. Our offices are at 250 East 96th Street, Suite 580 in Indianapolis, Indiana. Tonight, I'm representing Hy-Vee Incorporated on a new grocery store and associated convenience store with fuel sales on the southwest corner of Whitestown Parkway and County Road 700. With me tonight is Mr. Rob Waddle from Hy-Vee. And a colleague of mine as well from Kimley Horn. This project, as you're likely familiar, and I appreciate Janice and Roger have done a really good job working, and I'm sure his staff report was very thorough, talking about all 3 of the petitions that we have tonight: primary plat, and then a development plan for the food store, the grocery store, and then a development plan for the convenience store as well. The short presentation I have is for all 3. I figured it was easier to explain it that way. See if I can go to the next slide. So site location, as I outlined, I think we all are fairly familiar with it. This is the subject site. County Road 700 is to the east. Lowe's, as you can see, is the white box to the south, west. Whitestown Parkway to the north, and then the Royal Run subdivision to the south. The site is entirely zoned to general business. So that's the GB zoning. You may recall, we're the civil engineer on the Adler Zionsville apartment complex as well, which is to the east, on the east side of 700 due south of Get-Go. And I'll explain that here shortly. Primary plat details, the site is approximately 26 acres. Today it's 2 parcels, as you saw. Primarily have been used for agriculture purposes for as far back as a long time. And the proposed project is to split that into 6 parcels. 1 lot will be for the grocery store. Lot 2 will be for the convenience store gas station in the northeast corner. And then there are 4 lots, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are outlots for future development. So it could be a number of different things that would have to come back before this board in the future. There are, as a part of the development plan and the primary plat, both right-of-way dedications with this project. So we have Whitestown controlling the north boundary, Whitestown Parkway, Boone County Highway Department, who controls County Road 700, the Boone County Surveyor, who controls drainage through the site with the legal drain that runs through the project to our east. There's Boone REMC, obviously the town of Zionsville. I think we've touched everyone we possibly can with this corner. But we are dedicating right of way to the Boone County Highway Department for the west side, or our frontage 700 as it wraps around, and then to Whitestown to complete the corridor of Whitestown Parkway across the whole section. I'll touch on access on the next slide. So this is oriented with north facing up, which is logical. There are 4 access points to the overall development. They're proposed starting in the northwest corner. There is an access easement that came with the Lowe's plat back when that was developed with Anson. And if you were out there today, you'd see how there's a stub out for that road to pick up. So that's a full access location. If you were to drive due west, you can drive through the Lowe's development. If you were to turn right, you come up to a 3/4 access, so nearly full access, but you can't make an outbound left at that location. Along Whitestown Parkway, we had initially filed with a right in and a right out at that location, and through working with Whitestown, they're allowing us a right in, but not a right out. So that's what is circled here. On the north side is a right in only. And then on the northeast corner where Grove Pass and County Road 700, today that's stop controlled on Grove Pass as you approach from the east. And north-south is free flow. What we're proposing is a cut on the west leg of that intersection to be stop controlled as well. So stop controlled on both sides, free flow in the middle. And then on the southeast corner, this is directly across the street from the proposed Adler entrance on that southeast side. And what we're proposing there is a 4-way stop condition with crosswalks on all 4 sides. There's a number of reasons for that. One is the curve sight lines for people exiting Hy-Vee, making sure that there's not a car coming quickly around the corner. And it also provides for a safer pedestrian crossing for apartment people, as well as people from the south who can walk the trail up 700 to reach that intersection and cross if they wanted to walk to the development from the south. That's good for access. So just to point out, northeast corner directly west of Get-Go is where the convenience store and gas station is. And you can obviously see the scaling of the Hy-Vee store, approximate same footprint. I mean, not exactly, but similar to the Lowe's to the west. So for the food store or the grocery store, and this is the development plan portion, it's on lot 1, as I mentioned. It's approximately 18 acres, 17.93. It's about 152,000 square foot building. Of that 152,000, approximately 122,000 is the retail area that any of us could go and walk around in, with about a 29,000 square foot warehouse area in the back. Building height's approximately 34 feet, and we are right in line with the required parking. We're technically 7 spots short of what the standard would be. In working with Janice and Roger, there is a caveat in the code that would allow us for up to a 10% deviation of the standard. We're very close, and it's just by way of the layout of the lot that we're 7 short of what the code would say. In talking with Hy-Vee, that's should be an adequate amount of parking and what they've seen at their other stores around the country that they have. The plans were oriented with north to the left. So if you can orient yourself, Whitestown Parkway is up and down on the left-hand side of your screen. This is just pointing out the lot 1, which is bounded in red. On lot one, the store sits in the rear part of the store with the detention basin wrapping around the south portion of the site, which is the low area of the site. And I should have mentioned earlier in the primary plat, the entire area, the entire lot was drains to the southeast corner, which is down near the southeast entrance. The detention pond was master planned for full development of all the outlots, as well as the grocery store, rooftop, pavement, et cetera. And all of that discharges into the county legal drain, which is the Harmon legal drain. And we received Boone County Drainage Board approval this morning. We visited that with Kenny Carroll. So site's been approved from the release rates that control that legal drain that cuts across the field to the east. With the project in yellow, if you can see it, there's a walking trail that's the requirement of Whitestown that we're installing along Whitestown Parkway along the front, and then down 700, wrapping all the way around the store or the site to the southwest corner is a proposed sidewalk, which will connect. There is a sidewalk on the north side of this road right behind Lowe's. So that'll create a continuous walkway for pedestrians around the site. And one thing that was not code required, but we met with the neighbors earlier on in May. So we had a neighborhood meeting with Royal Run to the south. And it was important, and we led with this, was to continue the landscaping and berm treatment that Lowe's put in to our west, which is a 4-foot berm with evergreens planted along it. So our intention is to duplicate that in every sense of the word, all the way around where I've highlighted here in green, which wraps up and around the corner to basically the viewing angle for the back of the store for the residents to the south. One other item, we had initially had a site plan with a curb cut directly north of this entry to the neighborhood. Feedback from the neighborhood is they didn't like that. So we modified the plan and we pulled that entry up to match at across the street from the apartments. So I know semi trucks coming to and from the development are a big concern and should be to the residents to the south. What we see is the access path is coming off the interstate, coming down Whitestown Parkway to the 700 and Whitestown Parkway signalized intersection here, and then coming south, entering here, and then looping around the store to come to the loading docks, which are back here facing west on the south side of the store. And there's an adequate amount of space to do a full turnaround and exit the same way back to this location, back to the north and back westbound on Whitestown Parkway. So we do not see a need for and do not expect any semi trucks coming down this road to our south, 650, I believe it is, there on the south side of Lowe's. I know that was a big concern. With the project, we're doing public water and sanitary sewer extensions. These are governed by Whitestown. The sewer would be brought up from the south, which is right at the entrance to the neighborhood, across the street, and wrap up along that green path through the site to reach the gas station in the northeast corner. And then water will be looped. The Whitestown water system will connect over on Grove Pass on the southeast quadrant of that intersection of Grove and 700 and extend across to the west. And I mentioned earlier detention, the area highlighted there in blue is the normal pool elevation of that pond on the south side of the site. And then the orange line is what the Adler at Zionsville project would reconstruct as a part of that project. And we've had open conversations with staff as well as the Boone County surveyor. If for some reason the Hy-Vee project moves ahead quicker than the apartments, it'd be Hy-Vee's responsibility to construct that legal drain across the site to the east. So that's fully understood. And that's the condition they put on us at their approval this morning. Architectural elevations. It's a mixture of masonry, cement panel or concrete panels and glazing. It's always difficult on buildings of this size to get a good representative picture of it. So on the second page, or I guess on the next sheet of what I've provided is a picture from a Hy-Vee store showing what that frontage looks like. Is that, in our opinion, very attractive looking building, a mixture of metal and brick and concrete panels. So I don't believe we received any comments from staff on the architecture from what we had submitted. But certainly happy to answer any questions that you have about that. And then lastly, the convenience store with fuel cells under the brand of, or the brand of Fast and Fresh, I believe is Hy-Vee's brand of the convenience store. It's on lot 2, about a 1.3 acre parcel. The building itself is about 4,100 square feet in size, 23 feet tall. And the canopy out front, I believe, has 16 dispensers, 8 dispensers, but you can approach them from 2 sides. And we exceed the minimum off-street parking requirement for that. Just give you a sense of location. Again, it's in the northeast corner. Access to the site, again, north to the left. Access is circled in blue, so 2 access points. The store sits on the south side of the site with the canopy and the fuel islands there to the north. You can see folks can come off of Whitestown Parkway. This stretch here where I'm hovering my hand is the widening proposed at the intersection to accommodate both the lanes here, the adequate amount of space to have that southbound right turn lane as well as a southbound through lane. So there's approximately 2 lanes with 24, 25 feet of widening here onto the west side of the road, which will require the power or the signal pole on the southwest corner of that intersection to be relocated. And that's, we're working on those details right now, working with Whitestown on the specifics of that. Architectural elevations of the store. And just to wrap it up, staff had recommended approval. I'm sure Roger will walk us through the staff report of all 3 petitions. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks.
All right, thank you. At this point, is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak on this matter?
Thank you for taking our concerns.
You really should. You want to come up and into the,
I just wanted to say thank you for being here.
all right,
That's good.
all right.
I can do that.
Anybody else? Just like to get you on record. Anybody else? Is everybody online? Roger, Janice? Roger's taking it. Staff report, please.
Thank you. As Mr. Sheward mentioned, currently under discussion, we have 3 different petitions related to the Hy-Vee project. We refer to these as companion petitions since they're all related to the same project. First petition is the primary plat. Second petition would be the development plan for the food store / grocery store. The third petition would be the development plan for the convenience store and fueling station. Beginning with the primary plat, Mr. Sheward outlined the status of it very well, proposing to divide roughly 26 acres into 6 lots. Lot number 1 would be the lot containing the food store and its related parking areas. Lot number 2 would be the convenience store fueling station. The remaining 4 lots would be outlots to be developed in the future by future tenants or ownerships. Staff, including engineering and stormwater and fire, they've had a chance to review the primary plat. The remaining comments are outlined in the comment letters that are provided as exhibits to the staff report. Staff is supportive of this primary plat proposal and be glad to answer any questions regarding it following my presentation of the remaining two petitions. The second one is the development plan for the food store itself. Again, Mr. Sheward walked us around the project very well. There's one item though that I do need to bring up, and that is the project, the food store project, as currently designed, would require 2 variances, which have not yet been filed for, but we anticipate them being filed at the next filing deadline. The 2 variances would be, first, the number of required loading docks or loading berths. Our ordinance for a building of this size would require a total of 11 loading berths for this store. Hy-Vee has mentioned that 11 is far more than what they need, and they've designed it with only 5. And so they will be requesting a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals to reduce the required number of loading berths from 11 down to 5. And again, that will be heard at the next, not the very next BZA meeting, but the next one that they're available to file for. The second variance is regarding outdoor storage. Outdoor storage is not permitted in the general business zoning district. And even, I wish you could pull up the photo that you have of the front of the store, because we are not even sure yet what type of outdoor storage we're talking about. It might be, as is shown on the photo there, They have some products out on the apron of the building. By the letter of the law and by the letter of our ordinance, that would be outdoor storage. They may also be talking about, though, a larger area out in the parking lot area for like seasonal goods. In the spring, if they're going to have a display of mulch or plantings, things like that. We haven't discussed the specifics about that yet, but we anticipate those two variances will need to be requested from the BZA. So should you move forward on this tonight and your recommendation be approval, it would need to be subject to those variances being approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. Mr. Schuer was correct. Staff really has no additional comments on the architecture of the building. From a personal standpoint, it is difficult to take such a long facade and break it up so it does not appear as a very long facade. But I think they've made very, very nice attempts to do that with differentiating in materials and colors and providing some relief on the facade to bounce it back and forth. It has been reviewed in accordance with the zoning ordinance, and other than the comments that are provided in the comment letters, it is found to be in compliance. Staff is supportive of this development plan for the food store, subject to the approval of the two variances that will be needed. The last companion petition is the development plan for the convenience store / fueling station to be located up on lot number 2. I did want to note that access into this fueling station would not be gained from Whitestown Parkway. It would be off of the intersection where Grove Pass and 700 intersect. Patrons would need to turn into the development then to gain access to the convenience store / fueling station. I just remembered one other comment that applies to this and the food store. Bicycle parking, while bike racks are noted on the site plan and the general notes, staff was not able to identify where those were. So we'll just need to iron that out with them. But there appears to be sufficient room both at the food store and at the convenience store for the appropriate number of bicycle parking spaces. Signage on both petitions for the food store and the convenience store. Signage has not been finalized, but they have at least provided on the building elevations where signage would occur and the approximate square footage. So for their approval of that, presuming it complies, all they would need to do is file for an improvement location permit through our department to have that signage approved. I think I've run out of things to say, so I'm going to stop. And staff is in support of all three petitions. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you, Roger. At this point, is there anybody from the Plan Commission questions, comments on this matter? These matters.
Are there any operating restrictions on when truck traffic can come in and out and serve the loading docks?
I don't think so. Yeah.
And I honestly, I don't know if Zionsville's required that before. I'm just thinking of our residents immediately behind it. And there's some nice space in there. I understand that.
Sure. And I guess I would add, I don't know if we know the specifics, but the number of trips per week of semis was pretty low, if I recall correctly. I'm not sure if I remember the exact number, but yeah, 2 a day, I think is what I'm being told. So
Then probably not at 3 o'clock in the morning by design.
likely not. Not to put us on the record exactly. I don't know. We could certainly get back to the town on that, but yeah, I would imagine that's probably not in the middle of the night.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Sure, come on up.
I'm Rob Wadley with Hy-Vee, and I appreciate the lady that spoke in support. She left, so if a neighbor would tell her, thank you, I appreciate that. Just a little bit about Hy-Vee. If you've got a few minutes, I'll make it quick. But we're an employee-owned company. We have over 93,000 employees. We're in 8 states in the Midwest. We have approximately 300 food stores, 180 fueling stations, 275 pharmacies, 21 specialty pharmacies. That is the Reader's Digest version of Hy-Vee. So I can take any questions if anybody has any questions about Hy-Vee.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, right.
Please. Could-
What are the hours of the store?
So
Operating hours.
yeah, it's different per region. We actually have several that are 24 hours, but if there isn't very many customers that show up, there's a lot of stores that close at midnight and open back up at 6. But it just depends on, see, Hy-Vee is a little different because it's an employee-owned company. So there's, the store director has its own autonomy. So he's basically the CEO of the store. He gets direction obviously from corporate, but if there isn't patrons coming to the store, then we shut it down at night and restock. But we don't have the set hours for the store yet.
Based on your other stores' delivery systems, are the trucks delivered today? Or are they going to deliver
Typically,
overnight stocking?
Yep. Typically, it's during the day. So, and like I mentioned, I think 2 is actually a hefty number per day for trucks delivered.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any questions, comments? If not, who's going to make the series of motions?
Why not? I move that docket number 2022-30-PP, a petition for primary plat approval to establish 6 lots in the rural general business GB district be approved, subject to the resolution of the comments noted in the attached comment letters, Exhibit 5.
Second,
Second.
any further questions, comments? Janice, we'll keep going, voice vote.
Mr. Hurst,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Madrick,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Franz,
Aye, that motion carries 7-0.
I move that petition number 2022-31-DP, a development plan petition for 152,000 plus or minus square foot food store on a 17.93 plus or minus acre site, being in the rural general business GB district, be approved as presented with conditions as noted in the staff report based upon the findings of fact and subject to resolution of comments within the attached comment letters, Exhibit 5, and approval of required variances for a reduction of the required number of loading berths and approval of outdoor storage.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Janice?
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Madrick,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mr. Hurst,
Aye. Motion also carries 7-0.
I move that petition number 2022-41-DP, a development plan petition for a 4,150 square foot convenience store and fueling station on a 1.36 plus or minus acre site, being in the rural general business GB district, be approved as presented with the conditions as noted in the staff report based upon the findings of fact and subject to resolution of comments within the attached comment letters, Exhibit 5.
For a second,
Second.
any further discussion? Janice, please take roll.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Madrick,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mr. Hurst,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
That motion also carries 7-0. Thank you very much. Look forward to you guys coming to Zionsville. Next on the docket is 2022-37 DPA, I-70 West LLC, 4175 South Indianapolis Road, Lebanon. This for development plan amendment to provide for a guard shack in the rural light industrial zoning districts.
Give everyone a minute to scatter here. My name is Megan Hall. I'm with Pepper Construction Company, and I'm the project manager for this inbound guard shack. Our office is located at 1850 West 15th Street, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46202. So Pepper Construction Company of Indiana is petitioning the town of Zionsville and the community on behalf of the client to approve the construction of one 96 square foot inbound guard shack at 4175 South Indianapolis Road, referenced as I-70 West LLC. The intent of the original design when this, the original tenant improvement project was put on the docket maybe almost 2 years ago now, the client was to utilize some interior shipping offices to process the inbound guard shacks, or sorry, inbound trucks. However, this process is not effective. If you've been to the site, you will see a backlog of semis that kind of stretch onto that Indianapolis Road, the road that sits between the two buildings, Building 846 and Building 219. So the client then tried to implement a security card at the inbound gate to help kind of get rid of that traffic and improve their process. They tried that for several months and that process was ineffective as well. So after further review and a test run based on their other sites that are successful, the client is asking for this approval of an inbound guard shack. The size, again, is 96 square foot. There's an existing guard shack on site that we would construct in a, that we would match that material. So that pink color we're gonna match. Material would be slightly different, and in your law packet book, there is a side-by-side comparison. So I think the big difference is the exterior paneling will be procured locally at Menards or Home Depot instead of procuring through a specific manufacturer. Any questions?
All right, thank you. Is there anybody who'd like have any comments on this matter from the public online? Janice, staff report, please.
This petition is to request approval of the installation of a 96 square foot guardhouse at the southeast corner of the warehouse located on what was the original Hub Phase 1 project. The purpose of the guardhouse is to help establish traffic flow pattern within the site, to better manage incoming traffic and allow traffic to flow around the building and meet the existing outbound guardhouse as the traffic flows out of the site. Materials and color for the guardhouse are largely consistent with the previously approved existing guardhouse. Staff is supportive of the development plan amendment and happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you. I'll open up to any members of the Plan Commission. Questions, comments?
The only concern I have is you have a pre-manufactured guardhouse, it looks like at the other end, that's got a nice smooth panel on it.
Yes.
And you're suggesting you're gonna go buy barn siding at Menards and put it on the other one, which I'm not a big fan of.
Yes.
Um,
So the reasoning behind that is that, especially in this market right now with COVID, that lead time was 6 months to a year. And it just wasn't a good solution for, or a quick solution for the client. So we're trying to procure things locally, and that was equivalent material that, yes, is not as aesthetically appeasing, but it also sits, this inbound guard shack sits the furthest point back. So unless you're at the stop sign of Indianapolis Road and the street that separates those, you kind of have to go looking for this inbound guard shack, and it sits between the existing building Hub 846 and then the neighboring site Puma, I believe. So it sits back in a corner, and I don't believe you can see it unless you truly are wandering back there. But from a color selection, we're trying to make it blend. The color selection is the same as that existing guard shack and does match building colors. And it's a better solution than the security car that was sitting out there as well. That was kind of disturbing both the asphalt and the grass. So it's our best solution for the market conditions right now.
Anybody else? If not, is there a motion on this matter?
I move that docket number 2021-37-DPA, petition for development plan amendment, to provide for a guardhouse in the rural light industrial zoning district 1I1 be approved based on the findings in the staff report, staff recommendation, and submitted findings of fact as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Janice?
Ms. Madrick?
Aye.
Mr. Lake?
Aye.
Mrs. Gravonowski,
Aye.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mr. Hurst,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Motion carries. Have regard check. Thank you. Next on the docket is 2022-38 DP, the farm at Zionsville JV LLC, 11819 Sycamore Street, Zionsville, petition development plan approval consisting of 400 apartment dwellings on a 17.02 plus minus acres in the planned unit development district, the farm PUD.
Before this gets heard, I need to recuse myself from this
Okay,
issue.
okay, then I guess.
Oh, you're kidding me out tonight? BZA, they let me stay in the room.
any faces at anybody.
All right, please proceed. Name, address.
Hello and good evening. For the record, my name is Steve Pittman. I'm here representing Pittman Investors in our partnership on our project, the farm at Zionsville Plan Unit Development. Tonight, I'm going to introduce our team, introduce our project, go through a few slides, and I'll hand it off to Sean Hitchcock of Skinnell Properties, who will actually be talking about our phase one request, and also Jamison Sills of Delta Design. So the project that we're going to be talking about tonight sits on the corner, the southwest corner of Michigan Road and Sycamore. And it's approximately 50 acres, and it's a project that was approved in July of 2013, believe it or not, unanimously by the Plan Commission, and then in August of 2013, unanimously by the Town Council. Our partner in this project and our entity that my brother Chad is involved in, along with my brother Scott, who's not here tonight, is called Pittman Investors. And we're the controlling developer of the project. And when we wrote this PUD, it was one of the first privately written PUDs in the town. We put together our goals and the things that we wanted. And so this project that was approved, we got 400 apartments is phase one, and up to 225,000 square feet of office and retail space. Our partner on the phase one is our JV partner, Skinnell Properties, and our engineers, American Structure Point, and of course, Delta Design. As I mentioned before, we were approved in 2013, both before the Plan Commission and the Council. And our phase one is up to 400 apartments and 225,000 square feet. The project you look at here is this slide. This was developed by Delta Design as opposed to just talking about our phase one and the apartments that we want to do. We want to show you how it ties into the whole project as we see it. The forefront of the property would be 421, and to the north side of the property or the right of the slide would be Sycamore. And you can see an area of outlots and retail buildings. And we also have, once again, it's a concept plan, but would like to be able to get a grocery store. We're going to start the project in 2015 initially with a fresh fare by Kroger. As you can see up on the middle part of the slide, we're showing a couple of restaurants with a common area and performance area, and then a common area, which then ties into the multifamily project they're going to be talking to here, which is a little bit further to the west. This is just another slide which kind of shows you from the ground what the project could look like. And this slide right here is showing that the area that you see in red is the actual area of our project that we're going to be talking about tonight. And Skinnell is going to be discussing the multifamily portion of the project. One thing I would talk about here is when you look at our farm PUD, that document that was approved in 2013 is here, and this calls out the development guidelines, design standards, the things that we need to meet. But when we look at this project, if you look at the far west-hand side of the project, which would be, I guess it doesn't show up there. The far west of the peach colored is what we call the estate residential. As this started out as 62 acres, and we sold that parcel off. And as you go east, the area that we're going to be talking about tonight is called the Village Core. The area in yellow is called professional office use block. And then the area in blue is the Michigan Road use block. So we'll be talking about the Village Core use block. And the first exhibit we're showing down below is the exhibit for the use table. We're just showing that attached dwellings for rent is a permitted use.
And as you can see, more of an aerial view of the concept plan of going all the way from estate residential. And once again, one of the reasons why we put the estate residential there is because we owned it. And we were, if there was any reason not to like the multifamily, what we were doing, we were putting it against ourselves in the 6 lots that may be developed there someday. In addition to it, on the far south end, we have a significant floodplain greenbelt buffer also to protect the neighborhoods and buffer the neighborhoods to the south. We're showing in the area along Sycamore, again, a couple of buildings up there, which could be office, medical office, like to get some, more daytime traffic in this corridor. The yellow we're showing is retail. And of course, the other areas we're showing is a grocery store, a couple of restaurants. And once again, the area that we're showing you outside of what we're here to talk about tonight is more of a concept plan of how it may develop out. We could even eventually, one of the things we'd like to see is if we could potentially even do some nice for sale $1 million condos on this site. We think the mix of really good multifamily and retail and restaurants and entertainment, that people would be willing to make that kind of investment, that they would actually want to live in a community like that. That being said, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Sean Hitchcock with Skinell Properties at this time. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Mr. President, members of the council, thank you for your time tonight. Sean Hitchcock, Director with Skinell Properties, 8801 River Crossing Boulevard, Suite 300, Indianapolis. Appreciate your time and all the efforts of Roger and Janice and the town and the staff. As a resident, we have a lot to be proud of. We work all over the country and don't get many competent folks that communicate so well and care for the town. So we mean that, not buttering you up. Really do appreciate all the efforts thus far. We're here tonight with our team, Delve Architects, American Structure Point, Pittman Partners, to request development plan approval per 16.2B Article 4 of the Farm PUD. This is located within the Village Core Use Block that Steve just mentioned. Zoom in there a little bit. We believe we're adhering to the requirements of the PUD and are complying with the permitted uses and development standards as set forth within the PUD as approved in 2013. It's a big night, as Steve mentioned, 10 years in the coming to kind of get to this point today. So we're really excited for the discussion and appreciate everyone's time and the public discussion as well. And hopefully that we can move forward. Our schedule, we're hoping to break ground as soon as late this year. If all the stars align, worst case, hopefully Q1, Q2 of next year with probably a 28 to a 30-month construction process for phase 1 of the project. So phase 1, as you see on the slide before you, is really just the first portion of this project. So this is focused on 2 main components. And I think we've given this presentation before, so I'll go a little bit fast so I can get some kids to bed tonight maybe. But the first phase is largely the infrastructure that services the entire 46 acres of the site. So that's the road, the thoroughfare, the walkways, all the utility mains and storm drainage to service not only the first phase of the apartments, but also the entirety of the up to 225,000 square foot of commercial that Steve mentioned. So that's kind of this road you see connecting Sycamore to US 421. Really mimics exactly what was shown within the PUD and location and size. The second component of phase 1 that we're here today for development plan approval are the 400 apartments, multi-family spread across 3 buildings. We call them building A, B, and C. So building A is kind of the large weird shaped building that's it's exactly 264 units, wrapping a 405 stall parking garage in its entirety with units. So there's no metal screening pretending there's not a garage behind it. We're putting units all the way around it. Building B, which is kind of down by the retention pond. And that retention pond, worth noting, is actually sized to service the entire 46 acres of the site. So we're installing all of these utility mains and infrastructure in hopes that it really lures great retail with that already being in place. So building B by the retention pond at 65 units. And then building C is kind of running north and south to the east of the large building at 71 units. This is type 5 construction, 4 stories. Our target is to build on the hardest part of this site to build on. There's about 60 feet of fall and topography across the site. As you kind of come from the intersection of Michigan and US 421, there's actually a pretty large hill, if you haven't been back there, that really goes down to Long Branch. Our goal was to really develop on the hardest part of the site, bring some density, really use the topography instead of fight it, step our building into the hill to decrease the massing, really for both a better residential experience as well as to get it off the roads, and then to leave kind of the best outlots for the retail development to hopefully bring in Class A retail during phase 2. My iPad died there, sorry. Again, 4 stories. There's a small 5-story portion that's kind of a quasi basement between A and B as it steps into the hill. But again, really keeping that mass down is our goal. We have a total of 653 parking spaces on the site. I think our PUD requires 1.5 spaces per unit. So we're exceeding that with 405, again, being within the structured parking garage. Our intention is that this is really class A plus, some of the best product in central Indiana from a multifamily purpose. And you'll see that in a minute here with Jameson's presentation on architecture. But we think structured parking is important for that as well. Other amenities on the site include a covered open air community pavilion. If you see the 8 right kind of on the top right corner of the pond, that's kind of a community pavilion that we're installing that you'll see some renderings that really harken back to the old red barn. We felt that that was a kind of a staple of Zionsville. When we drove in, I'm a Zionsville resident. We drive by, I had my pictures taken there illegally many times, but we're really wanting to find a way to activate kind of the beauty of the site again down the hill. Saltwater swimming pool, outdoor gathering, cooking, grills, dog parks, all the amenities, and then some that you would find in really a class A product nowadays. Going to touch on a few other topics just within the staff report. So the landscaping we believe is fully compliant and if not exceeding the PUD. We believe that this site needs to be one cohesive development. I think a lot of times what you see in these multi-phase projects are projects that are bifurcated and disjointed and end up looking kind of like a Frankenstein over a period of time as they develop. So one of the reasons we're working so tightly with Steve and that we're sharing an architect and we're sharing a landscape architect, sharing a civil engineer, we really want to create a new destination in Zionsville. We think this is a generational site. Probably one of the most important corners any of us will ever work on. As residents, Indianapolis company, that's not lost on us. We steward this very, very seriously. It's Steve's family name and it's the Pittman Farms that are going to be sitting on the site. So it's really important to us to leave a legacy and build the right structures that also do that along the way. And landscaping, I think, is a really critical forward-facing part of that you'll see. Lighting and signage have been reviewed with the town. Again, it's more decorative lighting down the corridor, really trying to keep the light levels as low, especially during phase 1. This is a residential feature, right? And so the landscaping lighting as well as the lighting on the building will be more akin to what you would find in, holiday farms or high-end houses lighting than bright buildings you might see in downtown Indianapolis. Our goal is really for this to feel warm and cozy in a residential environment once you're kind of into kind of the inner workings of the site. Parking, we mentioned, we're right, I think, over the requirement within the PUD. Further, we have enclosed bicycle parking within the parking garage as well. We're hoping that our residents are going to have bikes and ride to the village and all of that stuff. Utilities, we mentioned those briefly, but we're going to be installing developer installed utility mains that'll be dedicated back to the utilities providers. So that's Duke. Trico is also relocating their lift station from across the street by ZPC, actually onto this site. To pump, that's the station that kind of pumps up and down Michigan Road. So that'll be the sewer, Citizens Energy, and CenterPoint for gas. So all of those utilities will be within our infrastructure, again, size for the entirety of the development, but then those mains will be dedicated back to those folks. Road will still be privately operated and owned by the development. So while this phase is receiving staff recommendation, we certainly want to continue our collaboration and design discussion with the staff and Roger on all open items that are listed in the staff report. This is especially important, I think, as the phase 2 of the project continues to advance into design. There's a lot of parts and moving pieces to this, more so being kind of a master development. Our goal is to really spur this to happen. We're kind of the economic engine, hopefully, that brings great retail and the full vision of the site. Starting with traffic. So A&F Traffic Engineering did an updated traffic study on this report from 2013. They did a new one that's been submitted to NDOT for months now. We've been working with NDOT, waiting on their response to that on US 421 is there the jurisdiction in charge there. We've been working with the town staff, Lance, George Lewis, and team, as well as council on Sycamore. No lights are warranted as part of phase 1 of the project. So the residential portion itself that you see today doesn't warrant that, but we're continuing those design discussions and we'll continue to commit to do that in good faith as phase 2 develops and the design happens, whatever traffic control methods are needed, that we work with the town and with NDOT on 421 to make sure that those happen as part of the development. Stormwater, the general design has been reviewed with the town engineers and their consultants, BLN. Again, open items will be resolved prior to permit issuance. They're fairly benign in nature, mostly administrative things to talk through. So we're really happy with where we're at today, I think, as far as the list items there to talk about. And then I touched on timeline. So we're happy to talk through any more of the details within the staff report and kind of open items at that point. But I'm going to bring up Jamison Sills to show a little bit more of the eye candy on the project.
Thank you. I'm Jameson Sills. I'm a partner at Dub Design, 1411 Roosevelt Avenue, Suite 302. that just changed a couple weeks ago, so I'm trying to remember. I'm also the principal in charge of the design team, and I was told I had as much time as we had square footage, but I don't think that's truly the case. So I'll try and keep it as brief as I need to, but cut me off if you need to. So this first axon here starts to show just the overall the development. On I think the first meeting we had with Skinnell Properties, we set some goals for the whole project to align our vision. One was to preserve the legacy of the site. It has been a great gateway site to Zionsville for generations. And so we want to preserve that, even though we knew we weren't going to preserve it as an agrarian field. We knew we wanted to continue to preserve the legacy there with some of the architecture. And of course, we touch on the pavilion for the barn pavilion. The other was just to create something authentic. Zionsville is known as an authentic town. When you walk through downtown, you see that it's an authentic place. And so we didn't want this development to feel out of place with what everyone knows Zionsville to be. And so those were two of the guiding goals that we had when walking through the whole design process. The first problem we have with this project this size is how do you break up, 600,000 square foot building into something that doesn't feel like one? You'll see here that, of course, the PUD directed us to break into 3 buildings, but we started to play with elevations and find ways to set it back off the street, the main thoroughfare, and create these elements that poke out to create different vistas. So as you travel through, there's never a point when you're in your car or walking through the site that you can see the whole building at once. Hopefully, as you drive through it, you'll see lots of different vistas that create a different experience, no matter which direction you're traveling through the site. The next was just using a variety of materials. With multifamily housing, there's a lot of repetition. There's a lot of windows, a lot of units stacked on top of each other. So you'll see that we used a wide variety of materials inspired from agrarian prototypes to try and break up these long elevations into smaller, more manageable experiences. And then last, we focused our design capital on some just higher elevated, higher detailed elements. As you enter the site, as you come to the main leasing space, as you travel on through the site, there's different areas that help hopefully draw your eye towards those higher design elements and away from just what is a very large development. This first rendering is as you enter the site off of Sycamore, looking southwest. You'll see one of those first high design elements as being the dark barn geometry as you first enter. We wanted to capture a geometry that, again, pulls your eye away from the larger development and starts to break the full building down into what might start to resemble a farmstead, a collection of buildings that have assembled over time. And so as you enter the site, you'll see this barn element, and you'll see that same architecture repeated throughout the site. We also used materials like, hopefully you're drawn to the light brown color, which is a Corten steel element. Corten is a naturally patinaing metal that rusts to protect itself. But we thought it would start to quickly lend an authenticity and an age to the project. And we use it in all of our wayfinding locations. So we use it in the main entrance to the leasing spaces and amenity spaces. We also use it near the garage entrance and other stairwells. So hopefully as people enter this large site, they can quickly orient themselves to those Corten materials. The other rendering is from the south looking northwest, and it's oriented at the nexus of the through road where we've located the kind of the jewel, this outdoor pavilion that's been referenced. And we want to develop this small amenity as a focal point and orienting element where the residents can say, hey, let's meet up and walk our dogs. Let's meet at the pavilion, or people as they shop or eat in the rest of the development can meet up there. It's a place to orient visitors and residents alike. So you see that on the left. And then as you look north, hopefully this rendering starts to illustrate the ways we've tried to use the architecture to break down, again, a very large building. You'll see a lot of our top story, most of the building is a 4-story building. Often we took the opportunity to step back the 4th story to create more premium patios up top, but then also make the building feel like a three-story building from the ground. And you kind of see that on the south end of building A, or the covered patio there on the building B that peaks out over top of the pavilion. Just some of the materials that we are utilizing. We're using the Corten steel, as I mentioned, cultured stone to harken back to a farmstead, board formed concrete foundation elements, lap and panel fiber cement siding, horizontal metal rib panels, and then some higher end ceramic coated cement panels on those the larger barn elements to create a concealed fastener, a very clean exterior panel that will stand up to the test of time. This last sheet just is trying to give you the details of the outdoor pavilion. The pavilion, again, is harkening back to the red barn has stood there for decades. We didn't want to replicate it. But we did want to harken back to it so that people understand this isn't a barn, but I remember the barn that was once here. We want to peel back the elevation so that people can move through, see views back to the retention pond behind the barn or the pavilion, and it opens up to like a stone hearth in the center where people can gather. It'll be metal standing seam roofing on top of a laminated timber frame, and then we're skinning it with a red painted wood screen system to again reflect what was there on site before. Let's see if anything else. I think that is the end of our short presentation, and I'll turn it back over to the commission.
Thank you. This time, is there anybody from the public who'd like to comment on this matter, in person or online? Yeah, please state your name and address.
So Alan Ladd, 6333 Mayfield Lane in Longbrook. So we're the adjoining property to the south edge of the development. I appreciate the town street and storm reviewing the engineering report, because I'm not able to understand a lot of the stormwater management for this property. And obviously I have concerns because our property directly abuts that across the creek. It's a fairly high flowing creek with a fair amount of erosion that's already occurring there. And so the best I can tell from the documents that it takes care of the stormwater. My concern is that the lower lands of the farm development is fairly swampy as is, and I'm not sure if that contributes to the projections with regards to how well it can absorb the water in that local retention pond, or if it's just going to overflow completely to the creek and cause more erosion in that area. So that'd be my concern to share.
All right, thank you.
Scott Herbst, 910 Tilson Drive, president of Timber Ridge Homeowners Association. So we're the subdivision just to the south on the other side of the creek. I think we also had just continuing concerns over drainage. We didn't study or haven't really digested fully the town's study of that yet, but I know that we picked up a lot when they widened Michigan Road. We've seen the same thing, a lot of erosion over there. Generally very supportive of Chad and Steve. I think I was president when you guys first approved this in 2013. I know they have great, we support them generally, but want to make sure it's done correctly. I am curious about how it works with the estate lots that were part of the PUD and are no longer part of the PUD. Are they still subject to that or not subject to that? I don't know if that's a question I'm allowed to ask, but not clear exactly how that works. And I think as Steve said, that was a little bit of comfort to us, knowing that they were going to be marketing those pieces of property adjoining whatever they built. So again, I have a lot of confidence in those guys, but just curious on how that works.
Okay, thank you. Online, we got take you, and then we'll have somebody online. Go ahead.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to comment tonight. Leah Wilson, 6345 Mayfield Lane, neighbors with the lads, and I believe 6 of our 10 houses are here tonight. And I know the Pittmans worked really hard to create what we now enjoy as neighbors and will be soon neighbors to your new development. So thanks for the aesthetics, and it seems like it'll be extremely pleasing. Our concerns as Elaine are that we maintain the privacy that you so well created originally. So we see that the guaranteed buffer is pretty low, and then you have the retention pond and the trail. And we want to request that you consider extra barrier through evergreens and mounding to create a screen to maintain as much privacy as possible through the phases of development. We have now filled the street with children, so we want to keep that safety, maintain that privacy. And also with the ravine that goes down into near the retention pond, it would be hard for us to oversee any type of traffic that comes onto our properties. So that privacy, as well as the view and the noise that are involved with the privacy concerns. I appreciate your foresight with the low lighting. We hope that you will maintain that and keep that as one of our concerns too, because winter comes, 6 months of the year, we can see straight through our woods. So the low lighting will be much appreciated. Another part of the view is the parking lot that you have put adjacent to our property lines. And so I don't know how that parking lot will face or end up facing, but if the lights are constantly coming into our backyards, unless those evergreens are there and the mounding is there, then that could be a big help. So just asking you as neighbors and to maintain something that you so beautifully created and that we enjoy now as a private lane. So those are our concerns from our 10 houses.
All right, thank you. We're going to promote the person online and then you can talk.
Thank you. Brad Allen, 11313 Sycamore Street. My concerns with the added traffic that will come with all these units is that with the current speed limit, which I think is already too high, coming past all those private access driveways and then down into the curve and across the new Sycamore Bridge, 45 is quite speedy coming into then Lions Park and the pull-offs in those areas. I'm hoping that there's an early traffic study and strong consideration of reducing the speed across all those areas along Raintree, Mayfield Lane, and on down into the Lions Park area. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Amanda Rubeck, 8180 Sheldon Court, Zionsville, Indiana. And I wanted to remind the Plan Commission that the Zionsville Chamber of Commerce Advocacy Committee did write a letter of support for this project, and I do serve on that committee as a member. And back when Wayne DeLong was with the town, that letter was also given to the redevelopment committee. Pittman Partners and Scannell are smart developers who create areas with livability, economic development, and create destination points where people want to spend time. This is smart for Zionsville. With this gateway, this project hits on all of those points while elevating a much forgotten about corridor. We are starting to see development on 421 and Michigan Road with Hinkie coming in, Appaloosa Crossing, and now Pittman Partners. This is a much desired need in Michigan Road. Sometimes when people say, oh, well, you know, that's on Michigan Road, and it's less than desirable, I oftentimes hear comments that say, oh, well, that's West Carmel. And then when it's Carmel, they oftentimes say, oh, well, that's Zionsville. And there's no claims to that. This gives us a much needed gateway and a much needed corridor attention to Michigan Road. And this development is smart. It's going to create economic development. I know this morning before the town council, you heard from Z-Works. I could see a future entrepreneur coming to live in this development and then creating a future business and then launch padding from Z-Works. When I think about creating livability inside of Zionsville and creating destination points, it's developments like this that will bring that to Zionsville. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else?
Hi, I'm Gwen Ladd and I live in Raintree at 715 Round Court. I've lived there over 39 years. We had a small stream, dry stream on my property, and it was 8 inches deep. It is now about as deep as I am tall, and this is over a small stream. So I'm very concerned, as the other people have spoken about, that you do look at the drainage, because years ago when they widened 421 to 4-lane, I don't know if you're all familiar with that, they put a very tall drain under the road. It used to be a short drain. That allowed a lot more water to flow from Hamilton County, and Long Branch Creek flows west to Eagle Creek. And so that's allowed a lot more water to flow onto the farm's property. You'll see a lot of young trees. They look like sycamore trees. So there's a lot of what I'm going to call a kind of wetland area. So I'd like you to really think about that and look at what drainage is being allowed. And then I have another concern. I read on your list that you're offering pickleball. I want to tell you a little bit about pickleball if you are not aware of it. I also have lived in Florida, Punta Gorda, Florida, and we have had very bad concern about pickleball. It started with tennis courts on the river. It's at a city park being converted to pickleball. You can look it up in the newspaper. Pickleball makes such a very loud sound. The sound is about like highway traffic. It is worse than a ping pong ball. It just goes ping, ping, ping. The neighbors that live around that park, in the historic area, it's just a bad situation. And I do not see it in your amenities. So I'm going to ask that for any people that are going to be living around there, it's going to be very annoying. So really consider dropping that. And then my other concern, I wish you could tell me where is the parking garage going to be. I looked at the drawings and I cannot tell what's the parking garage.
That's because they've done such a good job of hiding it. Okay, so if you see it in the middle right there of the building. My pointer here is not working, but
Look, point to me here.
okay, right here. That's the
So
parking-
it's enclosed like?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
you can't see it from anywhere.
And so it's also, that parking garage is all the way right, it's right here. So as Sean was saying, nobody will be able to know that it's not like this big parking garage sticking out there. It's enclosed with the living unit, so you won't even know it's there.
That's what I wanted to know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else?
Hi, Philip Pryor, 6457 Mayfield Lane. Also one of the properties in Longbrook that you guys are familiar with on the south side there. I guess one thing I want to bring up, and I echo a lot of the comments of my neighbors, but the pavilion, and I don't know if I can ask questions or how this works, but I have some.
Just make your comments and no response.
Okay, great. Is kind of what's going to go in that pavilion. You know, that's really been backed way up to our backyards, pretty close. And so if that's like an entertainment, I've heard a lot about entertainment and type areas.
And I have some concerns for the noise and for the traffic that goes down there. You guys even mentioned a place people can come eat, and then it looks like there might be a pathway that literally comes down right along our property lines there along the creek. And I mean, you're talking about potentially thousands of people being introduced to this area between, 400 dwellings and then retail and eating, and you want to encourage everybody to come basically right up against our backyards. I guess I want to bring it up that I don't know, curious what's going to kind of be the goal of that pavilion and what kind of privacy or safety margins you could consider possibly putting in there. The other thing that there's that parking lot next to this building all the way back by the retention pond that was mentioned. That's my other concern, is just that, like, those light, it's basically a road driving, aiming lights right at our windows. I don't know if there's anything that could be done to either a wall or privacy. I think pretty much the rest of the stuff my neighbors have already mentioned. But yeah, that was my concern I wanted to add is, and second, the erosion. I have when Williams Glen apartment went in, a lot of that, they built a nice big retention pond, but a heavy rain now focuses all that drainage right through my property. And I mean, the amount of erosion that's happened in just a few years from focusing that overflow from the retention pond, I would be concerned, again, Longbrook keeps getting more and more flow from all of these changes. And if that retention pond then drops right at the bottom of our property, we're gonna have a lake just eroding our property even worse. And what do we do in that circumstance? Who's responsible for those repairs if it completely destroys that lowland area? So I'd like to see a really good erosion study, which I didn't at least see or understand from that. So thank you. I should say also, I do appreciate the development, just to not say all negative things. And I think these are addressable concerns, but I'd love to hear from you guys about it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to comment?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak about this. My name is Steve Rook, 6460 Mayfield Lane. And I'll be quick, just to echo big concerns about drainage, proper management of that, because the creek that's back there behind our house is constantly causing erosion. And when the flow gets heavier and heavier, it gets worse and worse, of course. And then, of course, just to kind of echo the same comments that my neighbors brought up about trying to provide that continued, privacy that was created originally there. And that's about it.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else? All right, would you like to respond?
Thank you for your comments. So I'm going to respond in the order that I remember them. One of my first comments is the comment about the speed of traffic on Sycamore. And if, the engineering department wants to look at that, look at reducing the speed of traffic, we would certainly support that if that was something they want to do. We have a traffic study and we're looking at what will occur on the roadways when this thing's built out and how to handle that. But no one has brought up to us about the speed of traffic, but we're glad to look at that. Item 2, I really appreciate you bringing up all the noise pickleball makes, because I keep telling my partners it's too much noise right in the middle of the apartment. So that's something we'll continue to talk about, but I actually agree with you about pickleball. Everybody loves pickleball, but it's loud. And then the folks at Longbrook. So first of all, thank you for being our customers. That was a pride and joy of my dad's. Chad, who lived by the property, and me going over there from riding snowmobiles and dirt bikes when my dad wasn't able to sell any lots until people really started liking Zionsville. So we know that area well. We know the creeks. We know all that. And my dad used to make me go to all of your HOA meetings. And so I can see that houses have sold there, because I don't think I sat in any HOA meetings with you guys. And Dr. Ladd, you built a beautiful home. We approved your architecture. And one of the things I liked about it was I think it really ties in well with the things that we want to do as well architecturally. With regard to drainage and erosion and those sorts of things. So our engineers are looking at all of that, doing all of the calculations to make all of these things work. Mistakes can be made. And if mistakes are made and something occurs with drainage, there's more erosion or things that are not being handled, we'll certainly go back and work on it. we'll be required during construction to be putting up silt fencing to keep silt from getting into the area as well. And with regard to the vegetation down there, I think that's one of the things that we've done well, not only on your development, but on our development, to preserve and save a ton of vegetation, because we really wanted to be sensitive to you all, as it was our project that we did. But, you know, we kind of look at the connectivity maybe a little differently than you guys do, in the sense that, like, we're firm believers in connectivity, and we'd love to have we won't do this because you don't want it, but we'd love to have a connectivity where you guys could actually walk over into our neighborhood and walk to the restaurants and really, you know, connect into it. But I know some people look at interconnectivity differently. And in terms of answering your questions about, we have, you know, conceptually planned having some walking trails down there, like some crushed limestone, people be walking their dogs and that sort of thing. I mean, it's up to you guys really more. Okay. Okay, so that trail that you were concerned about, that's not going to go in now. Okay, what have I not addressed? And let me also, Amanda, thank you again. Your husband probably hates me that you're have to come to all these meetings and sit through these meetings and being supportive, but thank you. And thank you for the work that the chamber does in your business issues committee. And we appreciate your support.
Yeah, screening landscaping.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a pretty good example. This is our tree steady. So everything you see in the two shades of green, and apologize, they're two shades of green, is everything that's staying. So this is existing vegetation on the west line. There was another question about the estate lots. Those are still governed by the PUD to be no more than 6 estate lots, no matter who owns them. So that that's memorialized with the PUD regardless of the ownership. But that green tree line that you see, we've done a full survey of those. The only thing we're thinking about doing with anything green would just be taking out dead. So there's a bunch of dead ash trees and things just from a safety perspective. But our intent is everything within that floodway, that spillway, everything in green really stays. Really the only section of trees that are coming out as part of this project are kind of that, and my cursor's not moving. There you go. It's not showing up, kind of that middle L, kind of that bops up there. That's right where our road goes through. So we would certainly be open to looking at that parking lot that's kind of on the side of building B, installing, you know, again, some evergreens or some berming there just to protect extra against those headlights. Any other berming down low, to be honest, it's going to be up high, because we're right kind of in the middle of a hill where it goes down. So we do have some big retaining walls just to make this site work that help. There'll be some guardrails and some things there. It's part of the reason we put our buildings where we put them and kind of push that building a little bit to the corner was that we felt that the traffic going through the road was going to be more excessive than the traffic going to that parking lot that has, you know, 25 or 30 spots. And we really wanted that building to really act as a shield to the neighborhood at that corner, because that's when this retail is fully developed. We're trying to kind of plan with the end in mind, if that makes sense. He mentioned the path. That was an idea, kind of a dream. We thought it would be great. That was frankly like walking through there. It was beautiful. We're like, we should make this a dog path. And then we started talking to DNR and it got really complicated. So we're not going to do that. I think, does that cover?
There's a question about the pavilion usage.
Oh, yeah. So it's not a music pavilion. It's not entertainment. Frankly, the first idea of that came from Superintendent Scott Robinson. He was one of the first meetings we had because they were going through the redistricting and we felt like they needed to know about this project. So before we met with anybody, oddly, first time ever in my career, we met with the schools. One of his comments was, can you create a space and a place for, you know, tutoring to happen, kids to work, to be outside. This was fresh off of COVID. And so the idea there is that this is a spot for, first and foremost, our residents, frankly, to go sit and have a picnic and hang out and just be outside. Secondly, again, it's a destination for folks if they're walking through the site, if they're going to the grocery store and they want to sit and read a book, but it's not meant to be a, you know, it's not an amphitheater. There's not going to be sound amplification or anything there. Think State Park Pavilion, where there's probably some picnic tables just really done up is really the idea and the hope there.
Well, one thing I will add, I'm going to walk up the screen real quick. This is for Timber Ridge. I've actually met with this homeowner right here, and he would like to, he'd like to get this ground where the creek goes up off of his lot. His family uses that. The kids play back there, and it kind of makes sense that they just have that. So we're working through how we can just transfer that to them. I don't know if that neighbor threw anything up to you about that, but that's something that we're discussing with them.
Is there anything else? Nick, do you want to talk more about the drainage, specifically about how we're managing the runoff versus, or go ahead.
I just, is this drainage covered all 50 acres? Or
Yes. Yeah, so this storm retention pond. So what happens now is there's a watershed. It all drains into Long Branch, and you see the big Grand Canyon of Zionsville, right, with all the big rock berms and the erosion that's happening. The reason we're doing this as part of phase one is we're actually installing the drainage and that retention to hold water for the entirety of the site. So we're going to manage that water versus just dump it into Long Branch. We're actually going to hold it and retain it. It's a wet retention pond with an emergency spillway, but the intention is, and you can speak, I'm not an engineer and I don't play one on TV. Thank you. I've worked hard. Anything else you want to add to that?
I was just gonna say,
Name and address, please.
Nick Everhart, American Structure Point, 9025 River Road, Suite 200, Indianapolis, Indiana. So as part of the drainage ordinance, the requirement by the town of Zionsville, we're naturally going to be reducing flow. So whatever's getting there to the creek from our site and existing conditions will be less when it's fully built out and pond installed. So we're reducing flow. There shouldn't be any adverse impacts. We vetted it out, ran all the calculations, and everything's good to go.
I have just a general question.
Can you come up? I mean, excuse me. Can you come up? So we,
You need to speak into the microphone.
Mike, we got to have you on the record.
Environmental engineer.
I know that, but I was going to ask, is Zionsville's requirements for drainage is same as the state of Indiana?
Everybody's different. So Zionsville has, every municipality is a little different, but the whole goal is still just to reduce from existing conditions. So you're not increasing runoff. We understand that when you put impervious surfaces down, more rain runs off. So the function of the pond is to reduce that. It basically holds the water back, so we're not flooding anything out downstream.
I would also add, as part of this, are all the stormwater quality control. So those are aqua swirls. So they're big swirls that hold sediment. Those are being installed as well, kind of just to the side of our pavilion before it gets to the pond. So the theory there is it's taking the sediment from the site, holding it. We clean those out through an agreement with the town that we have to do an obligated, I don't know if it's annual, I can't remember what it is. It's actually one of our staff comments, so that sediment ideally isn't going into the creek. So that we're managing any sediment and keeping any water that would overflow, go to the pond is the secondary control point. So anything that gets through goes to the pond. We'd have to clean that out. Then in the 100-year flood condition, or I'm not sure what the spillway is designed at, if it would ever get to Long Branch, the sediment's gone at that point is the idea. So, but again, all through, I think Roger can speak more to that from the staff report and BLN as well.
You want to ask the question?
The only thing I wanted to kind of point out,
Can you state your name again?
Oh, sorry, this is Philip Pryor again, 6457 Mayfield Lane. Almost all those trees back there are deciduous, or they're not evergreen that you mentioned in between. I'm curious if it would be possible, like on the backside of the retention pond, to put some evergreen, something like a Norway or something that's going to get 50, 60 foot tall eventually. I don't know, just a thought I wanted to mention, or maybe we can talk offline later, but curious the feasibility of possibly doing that, because it is all in the winter, you see straight through.
Sure. Yeah, we'll certainly explore that, just to give a little like scale and context. So there's a retaining wall on the north side of that pond. It's about 15 feet tall before you're even at a building. Just when you start thinking grade, and there's a lot more topography there, as you guys see looking out your back door. We'll certainly explore that. Frankly, what we're trying to do is stay up the floodplain and doing any work at the floodplain, and our pond kind of goes right up to it. So hence kind of eliminating the ponds, but we'll commit to explore that fully and loop back with you guys. And certainly we'll look at kind of this area just, next to the building, south of the parking lot, and making sure that that's got some like evergreen coverage as well. It has hedgerows right now, it turns out. So in the site perimeter. So that's already kind of hedge rows, this type of plant, shrubberies. So.
All right. I think we're done with that. So let's go to the staff report.
Thank you. Between the developer's presentation and the very good Q&A afterward, a lot of the staff report has already been covered. I do want to just clarify, though, that this project has been reviewed in accordance with the Planned Unit Development Ordinance. It was established and adopted back in 2013. Staff, not only planning staff, but also stormwater and drainage and engineering, all that have reviewed the project in accordance with those standards and found it to be in compliance. There are still a few outstanding comments that are noted within the comment letters that need to be addressed, and the petitioner is aware of that. But on the whole, staff is supportive of the requested development plan approval for the, this is for the apartment development and the infrastructure that will be connecting, standing southward from Sycamore and then eastward over to Michigan Road. Staff is in support of the petition.
All right, thank you. At this point, is there any questions, comments from any members of the Plan Commission? Anybody? Well, we must have had a pretty good conversation about all the questions that were going to be raised, so I appreciate the people in attendance bringing those points up. I think Larry and I were the only two that were on the Plan Commission at the time that this was approved, so kind of waiting to see what was going to happen with it, to be honest. So glad it's finally coming back around. If there's nothing else, is there a motion on this matter?
Okay, put my glasses on. I move that petition number 2022-38 DP Development Plan petition to permit 400 multi-family dwellings on 17.02 more or less acres in the planned unit development district, the farm PUD, subject to the resolution of the comments within the review memos, Exhibit 5, be approved as presented with the conditions as noted in the staff report and within the review memos, Exhibit 5, and based on the findings of fact.
Is there a second? Any further comments, discussion? Janice, would you please take roll?
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mr. Hurst,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Madrick,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. So welcome. 6-0. Oh, 6-0. Crystal Lake was abstained. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you. Chris, are you joining us? Yes. I want to let the record reflect that Chris Lake did not participate in the farm PUD discussion. If I could ask people to please exit so we can continue.
Guys, it's late.
Guys.
Can you have your conversation outside, please? No, it's.
All right, the last thing on the docket tonight is 2022-39 DPA 95 East Pine Street, Patachute Inc. Development or this for a development plan amendment to allow for exterior modifications, including interior remodeling in the Urban Village Business Zone District BD. Could you guys please step outside, please? Is the petitioner present for this one? Is the petitioner online or online? Okay.
It's lost screens. Yeah, my screens are on.
Everything got shut there. It comes back.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Please proceed. State your name and address and please proceed.
Yes, my name is Kevin Coppedge with Studio 3 Design. Our address is 10748 Sky Prairie Street, Fishers, Indiana. And I am the architect representing Patachu Inc. This project is for the exterior modifications and interior remodeling of the building at 95 East Pine Street. That's at the northeast corner of Pine and Elm Street across from Lions Park. This project will pretty much get what used to be the Lemon Bar, was purchased earlier this year by Patachu. The interior will be pretty much stripped out, but the layout will be similar to what the Lemon Bar was. There will be an all-new kitchen, service counter, dining room. Seating for the dining room will be equal to what the capacity of the former Lemon Bar was. The major change to the plan from the Lemon Bar was we are moving the restrooms from what were at the northeast corner down to the addition that was added in 2017, I believe. And then on the exterior, we are pretty much just changing out the windows and doors. This building never was insulated, so they had some problems with heating and cooling. So we are going to fur out the interior walls of this space and insulate and also insulate the roof. Along with that, there were some issues with the overhead glass garage doors. There's one on the north side and one on the south side. These are single pane. So we're going to replace the one on the south side with a new glass overhead door, but it will have insulating glass. And then the one on the north, it was never operable. So we're going to replace it with aluminum and glass storefront, pretty much in the same configuration as what is there now. So it'll have the same look. On the east side of the building, there were two French door openings. With the function of this new space, they didn't really need 4 doors. So the one at the northeast corner, we're just going to replace with fixed aluminum glazing or storefront and insulated glass. And then on the south end, we'll have just a single operable door with the side light. The entrance door will also be replacing. That currently is a wood door that's not really in very good condition, doesn't operate very well. So we'll be putting in a new aluminum storefront door for the entrance. Then at the southeast corner or southwest corner, we'll be adding some new mechanical units and on the existing pad that exists out there near the existing cooler. Since we're adding a unit out there, we're going to add a wood privacy fence to help screen that. And then there will also be a new door kind of squeezed in between the existing cooler and the addition for some additional access from the kitchen to the dumpster that is located outside. I think that's about everything. Any questions?
All right, thank you. Is there anybody online who'd like to, or in person who'd like to comment on this matter? Being none, staff report, please.
This petition requests approval of the exterior finishes to the existing structure. As noted in the staff report, the developer requires additional plumbing and mechanical venting, which will result in new rooftop vents. Additionally, the applicant will be upgrading the windows to double pane and installing glass storefront doors. Staff is in support of the architectural details. The applicant has utilized the same dimension sign face for their branding, which is allowable by ordinance. The interior of the restaurant is being remodeled. Seating will remain at 38 seats, and the petitioner will utilize an approved development standards variance, allowing for 1 off-street parking space. Staff is supportive of the development plan amendment and happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments from any members of the Plan Commission?
I think it'll be a much more comfortable place to go to eat.
It was kind of cool.
Yes, it was.
Anybody else?
Not that this is really up as part of our discussion, but are both of those restrooms existing?
No, they're both new.
You might check your code. I believe all new restrooms have to be ADA accessible.
There's a section in the Indiana Building Code that if you have two unisex restrooms clustered together, 50% of them need to be accessible.
Yeah, Zionsville, I think, has had a different take on that in the past, so you might just check that.
Okay, I will.
I'm just trying to save you some heartache later.
Yeah, understand.
Anybody else? If not, is there a motion on this matter?
I move that docket number 202239 DPA Development Plan Amendment approval to provide for exterior modifications, including interior remodeling in the Urban Village District, the Urban Village Business Zoning District, VBD, be approved based on the findings in the staff report, staff recommendation, and submitted finding of fact.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Janice, would you please take roll?
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Madrick. Aye. Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mrs. Rabinowski.
Aye.
Mr. Franz.
Aye.
Mr. Hurst.
Aye.
Mrs. Walker.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. You are approved. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you for your time.
I don't know if we're to be commended or the petitioners to be commended, but this is the first meeting where we did not have a continuance. Congratulations. Any other additional business?
Move
If
to
not,
adjourn.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Adjourned.
Go for it.
Sign it.
Yeah, it's coming.